Acorn squash usually come into season late summer, early fall. I like to eat them roasted with brown butter and fresh herbs. A lot of people are intimidated by cutting them, which is okay because it is a firm vegetable and can be a little bit difficult sometimes. I'm going to show you how to safely cut them. To get started cutting our squash, we want to start out with a nice flat surface for our cutting board. The other important thing is to have a nice sharp knife. Something with a longer blade can help in this instance. To get cutting our squash, the biggest problem can be that it's rolling around on us. So we usually like to give it a flat surface first. The biggest problem cutting the top off can be the stem. Sometimes the stem gets quite hard and firm. I'm going to have a good grip on my knife, and I'm going to round my fingers into the claw to keep them safe as well. I'm going to use a bit of a sawing motion to cut down through the squash, knowing that when I get to the stem, sometimes that can be a bit of a firm spot there. So keep sawing through until you get the top taken off. Now I've got a nice flat side where I can lay my squash down without it moving around too much. At this point, I can cut my squash right in half. There's kind of even a guideline on the bottom here for the center. So again, I'm going to use my claw and we're going to cut down. We want to have the tip of the blade pointing down towards the cutting board. If it's getting a little bit tough to cut through, you can always use a helper hand over on the side to help push the blade through the squash. Before we begin cutting our acorn squash into wedges, we need to scoop out all the seeds first. Just like your Halloween pumpkin, you can use a spoon and we can scoop out these seeds from the middle. I'm going to turn it this way so you guys can see what's happening. It might be a bit easier at home just to scoop it towards yourself. There we go. We're ready to cut them into wedges. The first thing with this is usually I like to turn my acorn squash over so that it's on a flat side. Again, this is going to make it safer to cut. I will cut these right in half to give myself two smaller pieces that are a little bit easier to deal with. So again, with a good grip on my knife and using the claw, I'm going to start with that sawing motion right through the middle of my squash. As usual, it can be a little tough to cut through, so it's okay. Just get your other hand on there to help push through the squash. Now we've got them cut into two even pieces. We can cut them into wedges. If your squash is larger, you might have to cut these into 3 pieces. In this case, I think cutting into 2 will be okay. We're going to use that sawing motion again to get started, but once it's in there, move your hand to the side and just cut all the way through. Try to make them as even as possible. Again, right in the middle, push down with your other hand, and there you go. There's our acorn squash wedges. If you have any more questions, give us a call or visit the website. And, well, let's get into it. Forgot where we were going with that. But not quite all the way through so that the core can hold in place.
It was good. We got like
for about 1 hour. Tell you about